On the morning of January 2026, the federal agents executed a physical search warrant inside a local government office. The target was the election hub in Fulton County, Georgia, the focal point of heavily litigated and repeatedly disproven claims of fraud following the 2020 presidential election. This is a federal grand jury subpoena that escalated the situation in May of 2026. Instead of seeking voting machines or internal emails from election officials, it demands the personal, identifying records of private citizens who worked the polls. The text specifies that Fulton County must hand over the names, home addresses, personal email accounts, and private cell phone numbers for thousands of people, including temporary day volunteers and the bus drivers who operated mobile voting locations. Deploying the massive machinery of federal law enforcement to extract the private data of low-level, temporary volunteers raises a direct question about the purpose of the investigation. The Department of Justice usually reserves this level of aggressive data collection for high-ranking political figures or organized criminal syndicates. This timeline tracks the federal window for prosecuting election-related offenses. Under the law, the 5-year legal deadline to bring charges for any suspected crime tied to the 2020 election officially expired in 2025. By the time this subpoena was issued in 2026, a criminal case was mathematically impossible. Under federal rules, grand juries are strictly prohibited from conducting open-ended fishing expeditions. They exist solely to determine if a prosecutable crime has been committed. If the statutory clock has run out, the grand jury has no legal authority to demand these records. The administration's rhetoric points to a different objective. Over the past 5 years, the president's social media posts have repeatedly demanded the arrest and prosecution of local Fulton County election workers, calling for no mercy against those who administered the 2020 vote. We already know what happens when local poll workers are singled out in this manner. Ruby Freeman, a Fulton County volunteer, testified before Congress that the president's verbal attacks resulted in hundreds of racist and threatening messages, devastating her reputation and her basic sense of safety. Because the statute of limitations prevents any actual criminal prosecution, the federal government is using the subpoena process to gather the private data of ordinary citizens, effectively putting the force of the Department of Justice behind a campaign of intimidation. When a federal grand jury requires documents, standard operating procedure dictates that a local United States attorney, someone appointed to oversee that specific geographic district, manages the subpoena. But the Fulton County subpoena bypassed local authorities entirely. It was issued at the direction of Dan Bishop, a U.S. attorney whose jurisdiction is in the Middle District of North Carolina. This flowchart illustrates how the gathered data is routed. The subpoena instructions explicitly dictate that citizens' private information should not be sent back to the Georgia grand jury. Instead, it demands the data be emailed directly to out-of-state federal prosecutors and FBI agents. Bypassing the local district and cutting the grand jurors out of the loop reveals the structure of the operation. The administration is treating the grand jury subpoena power as a private, unchecked data mining tool to serve a partisan agenda. This is a January 2026 letter from the House and Senate Intelligence Committees addressed to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. The opening paragraph demands an explanation for why the nation's top intelligence official was physically present at a local FBI raid in Fulton County. The document also highlights how she actively dismantled specialized intelligence units built to counter foreign interference. The United States intelligence community possesses the most powerful surveillance capabilities on Earth. By law and tradition, those tools are directed outward at foreign adversaries, because turning them inward against American citizens poses a severe threat to basic civil liberties. Dissolving units that track foreign threats while directing the Director of National Intelligence toward a local election hub creates a stark shift in priority. It redirects the focus of the intelligence community away from external actors and toward the Americans who run our elections. At the same time, the White House established a special transparency task force to gather documents regarding the 2020 election. They placed a special government employee, a temporary advisory role, in charge of leading it. To complete the chain of command, the administration installed Bill Pulte as the acting director of national intelligence. Because Pulte was installed in an acting capacity, he bypassed the standard Senate confirmation hearings. The administration then intentionally postponed the hearing for their official nominee, leaving Pulte in control of the intelligence apparatus without any congressional vetting. Once in place, the president publicly stated he had given the acting director unilateral permission to declassify any intelligence records regarding the 2020 election. This creates a closed-loop system. By using unconfirmed loyalists to declassify cherry-picked documents, the executive branch can produce materials that support debunked conspiracy theories and publish them under the official seal of the U.S. intelligence community. The administration's focus on declassifying 2020 election records aligns with their current legislative push to pass the SAVE Act, a national voter identification bill. The administration is positioning these investigations and declassified reports as evidence of a systemic crisis. By generating a constant stream of high-profile probes into the 2020 vote, the executive branch builds the political momentum required to demand the passage of new nationwide voting restrictions. But the long-term cost is paid by local citizens. The government has established a clear rule of engagement. If you volunteer at a polling place, you risk having the FBI seize your home address, email, and cell phone number. When participating in the democratic process makes you a target for federal law enforcement, the objective isn't just to punish the people who volunteered in the past. It's to guarantee that fewer people are willing to volunteer in the future.